Welcome for another podcast of Yes, I Am the Veteran. I am your host, Brandy, and unfortunately, Melissa is not going to be in tonight, but we have the lovely Miss KJ on our show tonight. So she took a extra night, I guess, aside from Monday night slumber party to hang out with us. So pretty excited about that. So, how's your week been so far? I know it's been a wild week for me. Yeah, I say it all.
You want me to answer that with the truth?
Girl, yes, like this is my show.
It's like right there, it's getting on the side. I have to learn how to fix some drywall on the ceiling, but
Oh
thank
no.
thank goodness we have a lot of leftover Easter candy. So that's getting me through it. Like I have narcolepsy, and sometimes like I'll take so much caffeine trying to get projects done that like if I wean off of it or I forget to go like, get an energy drink, my narcolepsy just boom, and I was out for a couple of days. So
Oh, well, I'm glad that you're back awake. Like, is there anything? Like, have you ever fallen asleep like in the middle of doing something? I know for me, I was on a lot of painkillers, so I actually would fall asleep doing all kinds of things that you wouldn't expect. But I don't know if that happens to anybody else.
no, it happens. It happens to me. So I have a service dog Mojo. And whenever I go out or I know I'm going to be out for a while, he has to come with me. Especially, so I have these peak times twice a day where I know my body's going to get really tired,
Mhm.
and sometimes I've like fallen asleep while I was driving or something like that. But if I start like nodding off and getting confused, he alerts me. So I make sure I don't go out at certain times of the day or I get in extra naps. But we've been like experimenting with different treatments because the VA doesn't know what narcolepsy is, and they don't test for it. So my doctor at the VA is like, hey, you need to get a civilian doctor because I don't know what to do for you. We don't have the time. And I mean, I respect his honesty. It is the VA.
That's true. But unfortunately,
So
that's not enough, though. We need to take better care of our veterans.
yeah, definitely, definitely. So they said we can do some. The issue was that when I got carbon monoxide poisoning when I was stationed at Fort Meade, I went to Walter Reed and they forgot to put me on oxygen once they confirmed that it was carbon monoxide poisoning. And the issue with me was I was experiencing um, consistent low levels exposure. So basically, at my house, I got there in August, and my husband at the time he got deployed out. The kids went to Ohio because I was working on the NSA campus, so I couldn't get them on there yet. And I was by myself and I was pregnant, so I was going home. But I love Maryland. I love the fresh air, so I would always open up my windows, but I would always fall asleep like really quickly, and then I'd wake up in just enough time to talk to the kids and talk to him, and I would go upstairs.
Mhm.
So I started sleeping downstairs because I was getting bigger, and um I got to work one day and I fainted and they checked my levels and they're like, "Ooh, you're getting close to your due date to be smoking that much." And I'm like, "I don't smoke anything." And they said, "Well, your levels are of someone who smokes at least 2 to 3 packs a day."
Wow.
And that was after me being at work for a couple of hours. So, as you're away from the source, that's when, you know, you start getting more oxygen and your air's better. So my levels were lower actually, and then I went back home. And then the next day, I remember I was driving, and I was driving like I was drunk driving, and it's army base, so I'm surprised nobody really stopped me. So I hopped a couple of curbs and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Like, and when I got there, I passed out at the commander's call, and my
Oh,
levels were at the highest. So they like drew blood, and it was like super thick, like almost tar like.
oh wow.
And they're like, "Oh, your levels are really high. You're going to need long-term neurological care and long-term internal medicine care," because they said when you get carbon monoxide poison, like right there when you get your CT scan, the effects
Yeah.
aren't shown. Um, and so I had like cerebral hypoxia and hypoxia. So that's one of the things I fight so hard for, is because with the veterans that we help at Project S.T.E.A.L, they have other illnesses that haven't been investigated, or
Yep.
I don't want to say they lack the resources, but they're not frequent enough to be, what's the word?
They're leaving money on the table basically with their claims, what they can have potentially, and they
Yes.
don't. Yep, there's that
Yeah.
gap. Yep, I agree. I've spoken with Ina Menars about that as well for preventing veteran homelessness. Was be just really knowing your ratings and being rated appropriately. I mean, the difference between 90 to 100% is what, $1,000 a month. I mean, that's rent for someone, and that could really prevent that.
Yes. And then unfortunately, when it comes to that topic, a lot of veterans that have been helping work their claims because of them being homeless or becoming homeless during the claims process, they lose out on those appointments and they can never attend them and they miss those notifications and they end up losing out on being able to claim something anyways. Like I just met a 28-year-old homeless veteran and he said he became homeless because he got divorced. He had a lot of child support. He had nowhere to go, no credit to utilize. And I was like, did you start your compensation when you were, right when you got out? He's like, yeah, but it's been quite some time and I try to call them every day and they're not getting back to me. So I flexed my personnelist fingers that the Air Force blessed me with, and I was able to make some calls and walk him in to get some actual help. And I said, okay, we're gonna get you a new address. Here's the PO box we have. It's fashioned as a regular address, but it goes to a UPS box,
Mm-hmm.
so they don't have to worry about we can't send this to a PO box. So we get the notifications when the slip comes in for him to get an appointment now. And he got it pretty immediately, but he had been waiting about 4 to 5 months to hear anything back. So
Yeah, and it's so important too. Like when you have your CMP exams, if they need additional information, they'll send letters. And if you don't know to look out for those letters, I mean, they'll
it's just
close
a
the
missed
door.
appointment to them.
Yep, you're just
And then
no.
no, I was saying, and then right now I actually have a few people in my neighborhood or who are being rapidly separated due to not getting the vid the vid
Mhm.
booster, the
Yep.
vid shot. And they're completely underprepared and they're like, hey, what's going on? We're admin separating. Are we eligible to get benefits? And that's where I have to start breaking down, the separations AFI. I have to talk to the VA to say, hey, there's a bunch of people in my neighborhood are getting kicked out because they didn't want to get the COVID vaccine. So, what do we do? Are they eligible for those benefits? What do you guys require? Their DD-214s are not done. One of my best friends, her husband's getting kicked out, and they said, hey, no, you're going to get kicked out, and then you do your out processing checklist. And I said, excuse me, I was one of those offices in the Air Force, because he's Air Force, where you do an out processing checklist, and you actually have to complete it before you can get checked off to get your DD-214. So I don't know what they're telling you, but you need to talk to this person at this office and you talk to this person at this office, and then you need to get your commander and send an email with both him, your first shirt, and then the 802nd FSS commander and the first sergeant there and the chief, and let them know what's going on, because that's not right. Because then that's leaving, you're basically getting kicked out and they don't know how things, like, it's like a lot of units don't know how things work. And so everybody's in a rush to boot everybody out who got the COVID shot, but there's so many veterans coming out that are underprepared. And then out here in San Antonio, to get a mover when you're PCSing is already a feat in itself. It's already
Yes.
a feat in itself. There's a long waiting list, and it's like, oh, you're getting out in less than 2 weeks. And I'm like, I'm so glad I'm not in force management anymore because I would have went off. Like, no. I would have went off. So it's like we're rushing and I'm like digging into va.gov and I'm trying to, talk to the different advocates like, hey, how do we take care of this when they have this much time, they don't have their DD-214. What do we got to do?
Yep.
So it's been a whirlwind, and I can already tell with how everything has been with everything going on. There's going to be an influx of cases for VA claims. There's going to be more risk for homelessness because there's a lot of people who are still trying to get divorced. Um, and the first question I got asked by the few people who know I'm a personnelist, by heart still, they're like, hey, we don't even know what to do. We won't be able to pay our mortgage. We're not getting BH anymore after this. I was like, okay, well, luckily I'm in realtor school too. So since I'm in realtor school, this is what you need to do. And so it's like, luckily I get to flex and I don't want to say practice, but it's pretty much practice because
Yeah.
luckily I'm helping people with houses, and it's giving me more experience on the nonprofit side, especially with
Well,
this.
speaking of, tell us a little bit more about yourself and really how you came into working in the nonprofit world.
So I am a military brat, and I enlisted into the Air Force in 2015. Well, technically 2014. But I couldn't leave until 2015. So once I got into the military, I was on the active duty side, but before then I was Army wife and I was infantry wife. And so where we were at Fort Campbell, there were a lot of homeless veterans. Fort Campbell is split between Kentucky and Tennessee, and a lot of them were infantry. There were a lot of suicides on base. I think there was like at one time they started celebrating no suicides in this week, or we've gone 2 weeks without a suicide.
Yep.
And they were like murders right down the street from my house on there. And that's when I started noticing and talking to the other wives, like, hey, what's going on with our men that, you know, and at the time we didn't have any women suicides on the base, so this is why I say men. Like, what's going on? Why is this happening? Because how I was raised, I was gung ho pro military. Went to Andrews Air Force Base all the time, went to DC all the time. I still am super, American. So I was like, man, our men and women shouldn't be going through this. And so my husband at that time, whenever we saw a homeless vet, we'd stop by and we take him on a base and we put him in the hotel on base. And then we got him some resources through Kentucky or through Clarksville, whichever they decided to be. And it was only a few at a time. And then I started donating to other organizations. So in 2014, I went to my recruiter's office, and then that's when I started the enlistment process, because I said, you know what, I've helped out veterans, but I just want to be a part of my country. Like, my parents have always told me, don't talk about it, be about it, do your part. And I told my recruiter, anything you want me to do, I'll do, as long as I can help out. And a lot of people like to talk crap about the pencil pushers,
The
and the
numbers.
branches. But it's like I've helped out a lot of people get out of debt. That was a mistake.
Yep.
Um, and I considered
And
it
that
okay.
always
I'm
happens.
Yeah, because like a lot of people didn't understand, but finance and personnel were two separate entities. So
Totally
finance
different.
may make a typo, and then I'd have to march up there because I combed through their entire records. I've helped officers promote from lieutenant colonel to colonel. I've appointed many commanders, spoke to a lot of commanders. I've helped mortuary affairs with some of the things they had to go on. So I just want to do my part, because I said if I can do this paperwork correctly, then when that person deploys, he doesn't have to worry about whether or not his wife is getting paid. He
Yep.
doesn't have to worry about whether or not he has the right decorations when he's leaving. He doesn't have to worry about, you know, did he switch his assignment on time or anything like that. So I thought if I took away a little bit of the worry from the heroes that are boots to ground overseas or even at our gates, then I was like, okay, I'm doing something, because I'm taking worry off of the other people that are doing what I can't do.
Yep.
So when then at Lackland, I started driving around, and as I'm on my way to work, I started seeing homeless veterans, and I'm driving downtown, and I saw so many. I'm like, what the
Yep.
floop? Um, I didn't know if we're allowed to cuss on here, so I
Yeah,
said,
we're
what
allowed.
the
We're allowed.
Okay, I said, "What the fuck?" And I was like, there's so many VA centers out here in San Antonio. We have so many bases in Texas. I live in Military City, USA. Why do we have so many homeless veterans? So I started taking them to shelters, on my lunch breaks. If I saw them near Lackland on the military drive, by the Loot Gate, there's a lot of homeless veterans there because there's a few motels right there. So they stay over there, and they stay by the bridges, and they stay close to Wilford Hall, where if they
Yep.
need help, they can go to Wilford Hall because they're veterans. And it broke my heart. So then I started donating more money. And what we have in the Air Force, you know this, but for the others that don't, it's called the Combined Federal Campaign. You get a coin, and it's
Yep.
when you donate a specific amount of money out of your check. It's an allotment for the entire year. So I made sure I did something for either, I would split it up. It'd be autism and then veteran homelessness. So then I wanted to do more. I wanted to volunteer, but unfortunately I couldn't. I wasn't allowed to. And so once I got out, my second husband was like, you know, "Well, let's buy land and build a house on it." And I was like, "Oh yeah, let's have a ranch. I love horses. I'm a cowgirl. I'm a country girl. You've seen my boots." So I was like, how about we build some small houses on this land and let veterans just live here, and we could be one big family, just take care of the ranch all together.
Yeah.
And so we were looking at, houses in Ohio, but then we had our second child and we came down to Texas. Then that was the third baby we had, and then we came down to Texas because my mental health started going down. 'Cause there wasn't many services for me in Ohio that it took me 2 hours, 2.5 hours to get to. So we said, let's come down to San Antonio. And I said, what if we buy land in Texas? It's a lot easier to have horses in Texas, because I don't want to get a horse lost in the snow and then he freezes because that
You
would
wanted to
break
be
my
a
heart.
cowgirl. You can just say it.
Yeah, so I practice barrel racing every now and again. So so we came down here and that's when we started paying more attention to it. But then our relationship deteriorated because right after we moved down here, that's I think 4 months later, 5 months later, pandemic.
Mm, yeah.
And so we separated and I went through my stuff with my 4 kids and I became a single mom of 4, but I never stopped wanting to help. Ever. So we'd see people on me and my kids, we'd go to Costco or Sam's Club and he'd make these little bags, waters. I would have a cooler in the car and we'd take it to veterans and I always had like feminine kits, like the little travel kits they sell.
The hygiene kits
For
are
like
so like helpful in general to have. Like, anybody should have it. But it's like a lifesaver when you're on the streets. You really don't realize it. Clean
yeah,
socks, like, warm clothes, like there's things you don't think about in an apartment.
yeah, definitely. And I felt really bad and then there was one veteran and I know a lot of people are gonna look at me weird. I had the kids in the car and he looked really sick. And I stopped in the middle of traffic, and in San Antonio they don't like that. But when I got out, I got pissed on. I hit. What are they gonna say? So I was like, "Hey, sir, you don't look real good. Come in the car with me. Let's go get you into some cool air. Let's have a conversation. Let's get you fed. You don't look good." So he got in the car. He smelled. I told him, "You smell." He's like, "Yeah, I know, I know." And he made a joke, and he was like, "That's the smell of hard work." And so
Uh,
I was like, "You know what? I'll give that to you." So we had a conversation. Um, I took him to a hotel and I paid for it. And at this time, I had recently gotten the back pay for my disability.
mhm.
I took him to a hotel and I paid 2 months for him to stay.
Oh, wow.
Um, I sent groceries from Instacart and stuff like that. And he's like, "Are you with an organization or anything like that?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "You should do this," because we had been talking all day. He didn't mind the kids. He showered, got him some clippers. He cleaned up really nicely, but his feet were in very poor condition. So
Yeah.
we went and got some new shoes. He's like, "Yeah, it's just one of those things you got to deal with." And um, we just talked in depth about his perspective.
Mhm.
And at this time, we started getting the stimulus money. And I said, okay, with the stimulus money, I live pretty okay. I live pretty comfortably. My kids are okay. They're always taken care of. So I don't want to use this extra money for something that, you know, won't necessarily help out, I guess I would say.
Mhm.
So instead of donating it, I just started getting the kids together. And as we were talking and I'm getting to know him, I helped him fix his credit. He decided that he was going to move to Florida because his daughter was there. And so since he was on his feet and, he was able to actually work things out, he moved down to Florida. Last I heard, he was still doing pretty good. He's not a social media guy.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, so it was hard to get contact. But as far as I knew, he fared pretty well, but he told me that I should do it on the professional side and I was like, "What are you talking about?" And so we just had talks, and he told me all the organizations in San Antonio that he tried to go to, like Catholic Charities and stuff like that. And I'm not ragging on them, but he couldn't get help from many, or there was a long waiting list. And he's like, a lot of times I wanted to give up, and I wasn't feeling good. And you look how your mind feels. So once we got him in, he finally was able to go to the VA. He was finally able to go get some. I think that's what helped him move to Florida was he was finally able to catch up on those appointments
Yeah.
and get his money. We helped him get a bank account. And so
You
once
were
he
his
told me,
guardian
I started.
angel.
You said what?
You were his guardian angel.
Oh, I was like, I'm your little sister. You were here before me, and I just want to make sure somebody does right by you. And so I started looking into how to start a nonprofit for veteran homelessness or how to help out homeless veterans. And there was a site that had the statistics and they had what they did, and particularly, but they didn't serve our area. So
Mhm.
then I started looking at tiny homes, and I was like, well, if I can get people to buy them tiny homes, I saw the tiny homes weren't very good. So they were like 150, 200 square feet, which I'm not saying it's bad, but one of the things a lot of people don't realize is, there's that between them 18 inches, that rope that ties the heart to the mind, it's very thin when it has no sense of security and no sense of self. So I said, if you put them in a little box like that, they're never gonna look past what's going on. They're never going to learn how to be them. So then I started developing the plan. I started seeing all these other organizations, what they were doing. There's very few that are doing what Project Still wants to do in Texas, but we have some over the country that does it. And I said, okay, let's do this. And then I said, okay, we're Texas. Everything's better in Texas. So let's go ahead and make it a little bit better. I like these veteran communities, but what more can we do for them?
Yeah.
Okay, let's give them a 700 square foot house. It's large, but it's enough. Living room, bedroom, bathroom. They can shower. They have cabinets. They can find out things. I would have conversations with these veterans that, with my brothers and my sisters. I'd be like, "What's your favorite color?" And they couldn't answer it. What kind of, I thought this was a dumbass question to ask. I was like, what TV do you like? And, and they would look at me like,
A free
I
one?
like watching cars drive by that give me money. And I was like, oh shit, that was a dumb question to ask. Sorry. But when you ask them personal questions, the only thing they could ever go to is what they did during their service. And some of these veterans had been on the street for a very long time. So the fact that the only time they knew of themselves was in service was an issue for me. And I was like, you know what? Um, we need to give them an opportunity to learn about themselves, because if you can heal the heart and the mind, you can keep a job. There are two veterans I helped get jobs, but a couple of them couldn't keep them because those bosses, they were a little, I don't want to say impatient. I mean, it's their business. They don't have to, you know,
Hmm.
we're us veterans, us military members are not really entitled to anything but the benefits we were guaranteed when we signed on.
Right.
In the civilian world, nobody owes us shit. Nobody has to be empathetic to us. It's a
Yeah.
privilege, and that was a big show when some of the bosses would tell me, you know what, she was gone too much, and I said, sir, we're helping her get into housing. You know her story. We had this conversation. He's like, well, I got customers that need to be taken care of. And so I was like, okay, if we can establish, a place, or motivate other people to establish, this place of peace where they can figure out how to heal themselves, where they
Mhm.
can figure out what they like. Do you like horses? Do you like gardening? Do you like dogs? Do you like cats? Do you like walking around? Do you like fishing?
Yeah.
You never have these opportunities to do these things. So if we can create kind of an Elysium, or, a Valhalla on earth where they can go to and focus on their minds, get their therapies. We'll work with different, like UTSA has a Doctors Without Borders group for a lot of those students. And, a lot of students that are in school to be psychiatrists, they need that volunteer time. Wilford Hall, their residences need volunteer time. So it's like, okay, if we can make this centralized location out here where they can, we have our own little store, our own little community,
Yeah.
where they don't have to worry about going on the outside, where they can, if they find working out is healing for them, let them work out. Let's focus on that mind. Let's focus on those skills. Let's teach them, the different minor things that you never knew you would need when you got out. And of course, we rely on TurboTax active duty because it's free. But when you're no longer active duty and you don't know what you're doing and you don't have that W-2 that spells it out for you from my pay, what are you doing? Let's get that
Exactly.
bank account back. A lot of these veterans never got a lick of stimulus money because they couldn't have a bank account because they had no identification. I found out the Social Security office, you can't get a Social Security card if you don't have the associated address near you.
Nope.
Like, even I ordered it and they're like, it's going to be sent to Ohio because that was your last registered address. And I'm like, that's okay. So going through these experiences, I was like, okay, let's take care of the mind first. Because then once they're ready, and we established this relationship with different companies helping us build these properties, once they're ready, they can go into the workforce and they come home to sanctuary. They
Yeah.
come home to them. And I feel, and looking at the evidence of the studies they did for regular homeless people, when their minds are healed, they'll they'll retain their jobs a lot, longer.
Do you feel like the job, like when the job, like you said that there was like maybe some like judgment? What are like common misconceptions that you feel people have in regards to homeless veterans?
I think the biggest one was there are drug addicts and alcoholics that choose to be homeless.
Yeah.
That's the biggest one, because when I was on live on Instagram a lot of times and I was talking about it, a lot of people be like, "Oh, well, they're on drugs and they're alcoholics and they choose to be homeless." One, yes, they choose to be homeless because they've been relying on a lot of the resources that we told them would work and they didn't work. But one thing they could always guarantee was there was always going to be a space under some sort of bridge.
Yep.
That was always a guarantee. Somebody somewhere was going to give them a dollar. They didn't have to be sold anything false, any false promises or anything like that. Secondly, I said if you are a veteran and you were injured during combat and you're going through active duty and you have consistent doctors, you have consistent insurance, you're on consistent medication, the military doctors are very quick to give out narcotics. I've
Yep.
experienced it. You experienced it. Any vet that says no obviously hasn't gone to the doctors in the military with a serious injury. So it's like
Walk it off.
you make them reliant on these medicines that you can't really get or you have to pay for once you get out. But what a lot of civilians don't understand is when we get out of the military, getting switched to the VA is not an instant is not an instant process. When you get
Yep.
out of the military and you sign up for a new job, you still have to wait those 60 to 90 days to get healthcare coverage.
Yep.
So, what are you going to do in between the 60 to 90 days when you start a new job, if you can start a new job, between the 3 to 6 months? Some get it sooner, some don't. But the 3 to 6 months, 'cause it took me 6 months to even get an appointment, but I got pushed back 3 more months. So my first actual face to face to my doctor wasn't until 9 months until after I got out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was pregnant too, and so they didn't process my referral until after Kirsten was born.
And what
So
sucks
I
is
was
you were eligible for TRICARE for a year, and no one told anybody. Like, and a lot of veterans, they don't know what you're eligible for when you get
yeah,
out. And
you have to sign up for it right before
Mhm.
you get out. And
Yep.
so it's like between that timeline and you have this chronic pain, this chronic knee injury, this chronic back injury, the migraines, whatever's going on with you, what are you to do? Because they've already made us numb to ibuprofen.
Vitamin M,
Ibuprofen, ibuprofen is like an M&M now. You know, you
basically.
can't take that anymore. So what are you going to turn to numb the pain? Alcohol, street drugs, because it takes it away and it's pushing you further. It's numbing the pain and you're trying to get through it. So I said, you got to think about that. You get blown up by an IED because one of my best friends, he told me himself when he got out, he could not get any help and he could not pay for his prescriptions. But what he could pay for was a drug and it took away the pain and it got him to work. It got him to go through things, but then he got addicted. And I said, you really you sit there and you're at these parades and you wear the red, white, and blue. And when someone kneels, you get upset talking about you're disrespecting our soldiers. Well, what are you doing when you sit there and you spit at them, calling them addicts, saying that they're choosing to be homeless? It's the same damn thing for me. It's the same damn thing. It's disrespect.
What are the most common like contributing factors that you feel really contribute to veteran homelessness that you've seen or you've heard from a lot of the people that you interacted with?
I would say the top one would be mental and physical health, then lack of resources, and that includes financial. And then the failure to transition. One of the statistics is that they say over 50% of the military members who took a survey after TAPS found no use and felt TAPS was rushed and that they were underprepared to leave the service. And I think over 70% of the veterans that were on that part had a failure to transition into civilian life because a lot of the jobs that that are military offers these beautiful bonuses for,
Yeah,
the money's great, be a pararescueman. What does that translate to in the civilian world?
like
You only have a
EMTP.
couple options. Yeah, you only have a couple options. It's either a civilian contractor, a firefighter, or a police officer. You can't go working, at a receptionist desk if you don't have any of those skills. Because a lot of people don't realize when we have these jobs, like for me, luckily I could be a secretary anywhere. But, if someone who is a security forces member applied for the same job as me, he doesn't have those skills. He didn't get to work on those skills. He didn't get that trade. He didn't get that education. So he's not going to get that job. And I say that because Scott, he's security forces and I applied to 107 jobs for him. And he only got called back for an overseas contractor in the Middle East, police, and fire.
You're like,
and a bus driver.
in a
But
bus.
yeah, a bus driver.
You
And
called him.
yeah, and he tried driving buses. He's like, it was too much. It was too much. Because, I don't know what he saw, when he deployed, but he was triggered when he was driving buses and the unpredictability. It wasn't good
Yeah.
for him. So I sat there and I'm powerful when it comes to building a resume, paperwork, breaking down contracts. I'm
That's
a
that's a
fox with it,
that's a skill. That's a
and
skill.
so I made his stuff look excellent, and he still didn't get those jobs because he still didn't have
Aw,
the skills.
sounds like my ex-husband. My
Yeah,
ex-husband messed up the interviews though, so that's more his problem.
yeah. I was like, and then I told him, I said, "This is what you do when you go to these jobs. You talk." So what he does now, he just works factory because that's all he really can do. He doesn't have any of those other skills, um, and that was a reality check. And so I'm very thankful that we struggled just a little bit, not compare myself with others, but we got to confront a lot of the problems. So when people would tell me, because before they were like, "Oh yeah," I would be on all these military groups on my old Facebook when I was active duty, and they'd talk crap about the VA, and I'm like, it can't be that bad. Like, oh, our VA loves us, our government loves us, like they keep us paid. And then I got out, and I was like, oh shit. So glad I'm not on that Facebook anymore because I bet they'd be sitting there looking at me like, how about now? So I was like, and I'm like, damn, you guys get an increased budget every year. What are you doing with the money? But I was like, obviously, if you guys wanted us to know, we'd know. We'd probably be pissed. So,
Also true.
let's, yeah,
Yeah.
let's help.
They learn from seeing us riled up in like prosthetics and like in the VA hospital itself, so they're like, better not.
I met a vet who got a prosthetic. I gotta remember his story. It's gonna come to me. But did you know that some places will repossess your prosthetics if you can't pay for it?
Do you know that prosthetics here actually has security because of the fact that some people get extremely violent when they're denied prosthetics, and the security is for the people in the wheelchairs?
Oh my god.
Yeah, because I asked that question because I was down there. I was like, okay, why do you guys have an armed security guard down here? They're like,
Mm.
well, because people get upset that, they're not a candidate at that time. But there are a lot of programs out there, and like through the VA, like they don't charge you for your prosthetic if it's service connected. Like for mine, like I've never paid $1 for mine, and a lot of people don't know they're actually eligible for a clothing allowance,
Yeah.
and because of their prosthetic or because of the creams they have on or anything like that. But prosthetics doesn't make a habit of telling them that they're eligible too, and that's more money that they're losing out on, like
Yep.
$800 a year or something.
Yeah, I found that out because I saw him one day and he had a leg, and I saw him the next day and he didn't. And I was like, "What the fuck?" And
Double.
he's like, "Oh, they took my leg." And I'm like, "Hold up, get in the car. We're going." And I took him to the VA, and I did a lot of googling, and I got him in there, and I called a few people that can, handle it because we didn't have any funds at the time. And I was like, he went through he like gathered enough money, and he paid for a medical visit, and then that's how he put a payment down for it because he needed it immediately. So I found out they told him there was like a little bit of a waiting list to see if he was eligible.
Yep.
And so because he couldn't continue to pay, they found him and they confiscated his leg. And I was like, this is the I thought I seen a lot of bullshit, but that took the cake.
It's like it sucks enough to have back pay stuff.
Like I was like, I know they're quick to come take your car, take your furniture, all that kind of stuff, but
It's like they can't. What are they gonna do with it? Like they measure it to you. Like your prosthetic is to you. Like it's made to fit you specifically, like to the millimeter. So
I
like
looked it up on Reddit. They just
even
destroy it. I looked it up on Reddit. They just destroy it and file it as a loss on taxes.
yeah, it's like I don't see that working out for anybody.
But then they send a creditor after you, and I was like, good luck. He don't have a phone.
Or like I saw that. He's salty now.
He don't have a phone, but luckily, he got some help.
I was
So
gonna say, did he get help?
yeah, he got some help. He went through
Okay,
GI Forum and got placed in an actual apartment.
nice.
Thankfully. So yeah, that was an adventure for me. And I've cussed out a lot of people on this journey of nonprofitcy.
It's a catty world, I would say. It's a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, no, it definitely. I think that the biggest day where there was a veteran I took, and we went to Manchu Walk,
Manitowoc,
and
yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna give them the respect of pronouncing it properly. You know, they're meant to walk. Um, and the manager asked him if he could leave because we were making people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's happened to me. Mhm.
And
It's embarrassing too when they tell you that. You're just like, what
I
do we do
said,
over everything?
you know, in my head, you would think people have seen enough memes about how women are with men when somebody gets their order wrong. So
Yeah.
so you could imagine. I'm not gonna verbatim say what I said, but I let her know that hey, I paid for this. He's my guest.
Yeah.
I will shit my pants right here to smell just like him, and we're gonna eat in comfort. You guys got your money. You said no shoes, no shirts, no service. And you don't have a we have a right to refuse service sign in here. He has shirts, he has shoes. So here's a service to leave me alone.
Yep.
And she left me alone. So, and I apologized to him. He's like, "Oh, I'm used to it." And it didn't phase him one bit. And I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's fucking disgusting."
People, yeah, it's unfortunate that like you hear stuff like that, but it happens so often. It's almost like harder to be nice in this day and age than it is to refrain from being cruel, and that's something that we should really teach our children. I've seen it many times where like moms and their kids would come up and say, can you cover up, you're scaring my child, or they'd point and laugh, and you're just like you're teaching your kid to be this way, and now your kid's gonna think that that's okay, like that's not cool, like just to judge like that. Unfortunate.
Just let me know. I fight adults and I fight kids too.
I can't with you right
Heck, y'all hear that? I fight adults and I fight kids. I'm a
now.
good punter.
I can't
No, I'm
with
just
you.
kidding.
She's fast. I've seen her. Um, so, what would you say is a common reason that women veterans don't stay overnight for a lot of like the housing, the temporary housing, or like the hood housings, in your experience? Because I know I've heard a few different stories from different women veterans that have used them.
So, one, the places are not secure.
Definitely.
They treat you like a number instead of like a personal case. And I know from the women veterans, there's very few I've encountered the lack of security. Like you make them aware, like, hey, I have this protective order, and this person's after me. And a judge has honestly told me in Annapolis, like, hey, a protective order is as good as a holy umbrella. That's all it is. You put it on top of your head as much as it can protect you from rain, it protects you from the abuser. And this is literally, I'm gonna pull the transcripts and I'm showing
The
to you
judge is
today.
telling me that. That's like, why did you even issue it?
Yeah. So a lot of the times, if they do not feel secure, they will leave to where they know they're secure, or they end up going back because they'd rather deal with what they know and what they're familiar with than a broken promise.
Yep.
There's been a lot of times where abusers have found um, their wives who have left or trying to get out of that situation, and they couldn't rely on it. I know when I had to go to one when I was married to my first husband, he showed up that same night, and they didn't really do much about telling him he couldn't be there or not. They said, "Sir, you're a man," so he sat out there and waited the whole time to see if I would come out. And they don't really do anything because
How
he's not
scary is that for
actively making
you?
a threat.
Like you're knowing he's there, and you're just like there's just like a wall, like he could just run in at any time. That's got to be very stressful for you.
Yeah. So, and not all the facilities are, I would say, optimized for women. And I think for a lot of women veterans, they are MST survivors. So there's not a lot of empathy when it comes to that. They're just numbers to get funding. Somebody's going to be mad I'm saying that, but let me tell you, let me look at the camera. I don't care.
Well, I've heard like a lot of times they do the reports at night too, and a lot of women don't want to stay at night because they don't feel secure with the locking mechanisms on the doors, or there isn't one, so they won't stay. And they'll couch surf, and they're not counted in the numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Unfortunately, like I still am blown away that women veterans aren't considered like homeless if they're couch surfing, or veterans in general, like if they're couch surfing because they're wanting to make maybe more stable situation with a friend or someone they know or they trust, especially if you have PTSD or MST, you really struggle with trust.
Yeah, exactly. And you're in survival mode they're survival mode that whole time. It's not revealed on our website yet, but with Project S.T.E.A.L, we're actually separate to the property. We're going to be doing a facility specifically for women and their children where they can take part in building their own homes, where it's completely gated with armed female security, their own facilities to where it's like, you know, kind of like going on post. If you don't have the ID to get on there, you're not allowed on there, period. And
Yeah.
I said, this is Texas. If someone comes up and you need to use force, go ahead and use that force.
I mean, just we got a sign. You know, it's fenced. I don't know what to tell you. It's Texas. I don't like to trespass in general. It's dangerous in Texas. So, what projects do you have currently that are underway, and what area are you serving with Project S.T.E.A.L?
So right now we've been on a referral basis with Wrinkle Court Military Village. So when the GI Forum gets a veteran into one of the apartments or an apartment in general, the administrator for Wrinkle Court calls us and lets us know who the person is. We make contact with that person. We get to know who they are, what they like, what their biggest wishes, and we go with the donations and we go get the basic housing items like toilet paper, paper towels,
Yep.
feminine products to make sure that they're taken care of. We add a little bit of decoration to make it homey, and um, and so that's our biggest project now too. So two of the things we want to do, we still want to establish the veteran village, especially with our fundraisers coming up. But we also want to open up a Hero Hope Center, kind of like a USO, but for veterans. What a lot of people don't know is, as a veteran, unless you are retired with a blue card, you cannot utilize the USO.
Yep.
So we wanted to create an area where they can kind of come, you know, in the morning they can eat some breakfast, brush their teeth, shower, put on some clothes, apply, relax, get out of the sun so they don't get any charges for loitering or panhandling. You
Yep.
know, they're in a safe environment. Um and then, you know, so if they have a job to do, they can come here and they can get ready for it until they're able to afford some sort of housing. If they have cars, we're looking at a few lots where um there's like a big parking lot to where if they have a car, until we figure out the zoning to see if we can turn part of it into a shelter or partner with other shelters, if they want to sleep in a secure area, it could be right there, but they can come use the facilities, and throughout the night they'll get a pass card to use to come in, you know, inside and out. So that way we're not just servicing who's on the Veteran Village Ranch.
Yep.
They're able to take care of themselves in the interim while we're preparing this building. Because building it, the kit that we're looking at will take about 3 months to build completely, and we still
Yep.
have to furnish, paint, and everything like that. But in the meantime, they'll still be able, you know, we're gonna have a mailbox there. So if they need their IDs sent there, if they need to go to any appointments, we would take them where they need to go at. And thus I feel like we'd be freeing resources throughout the city for homeless civilians who don't have any of those spots. So they can be amongst everyone that they have something in common with.
Your cat's taking that bath really seriously behind you, by the way. Cat's like all in. How luxurious. The cat's gonna be like, what? But no, so when you say kid, like you're meaning like one of those like building facilities, like for how many veterans?
So I would say it's kind of like a barn dominium
Okay.
or an apartment barn dominium. We are working with someone with DC structures and also a an architect who's drawn it out. But what we're going to be doing is for the second floor of the barn dominium, we will be fashioning it as if it were like basic training. So when I went through basic training in the Air Force, we had Disneyland. You know, I was one of those spoiled squadrons, you know, with the new dorms.
Yes, I remember them.
No bats. So we
And
went
that's
to
Hotel
Disneyland.
Hall.
They fit 52 people inside a whole dormitory, and that's still with the bathrooms, you know, the laundry facilities, the office, the day room. So we're working with the architect who's actually worked on projects with the dorms on Lackland, and he's getting the square footage together, and he's going to see how it can function on the second floor, because a lot of the barndominium kits we're choosing are between 5 to 7,000 square feet total.
Mm.
So we figured if we can fit two dormitories side by side, that's 104 veterans off the streets, and they have their locker, they have their drawers. And I actually spoke to someone at the federal surplus, and because of some of those lockers aren't in optimal condition, like they may have small bins and dings, um, they're willing to give us those for a very discounted price, including the beds. But we'd get our own mattresses, of course, so they're a little bit more comfortable. But when it comes to the beds and the lockers, and some of the old washer and dryers, some of the kitchen items, pretty much the federal surplus between Fort Hood, Del Rio, and San Antonio would be cleaned out by us to go ahead and furnish a lot of this. So I said, if it's 104 veterans off the street at one time, if someone needs to fly out to come to us and we can work with another organization to do that, if we got to go drive to Dallas to pick them up and, a coach bus, then that's what we do. But
Yep,
they're getting
that's
off the street. And they still go downstairs and they still get to do intake. They get to work with our offices. They go out of the building. They go to the dining facility and the rec hall if they want to work out, eat, cook, garden, they'll be able to do all that and they come to one centralized location afterwards. And it's the same for our female veterans on their portion of the property that they'll be having.
Yep. So
But it'll be designed a little different if they have children.
So is it just going to be for like women and children, or are you going to have like aside for like males, maybe they're single parents or like family units or something?
So if they are family units with the donations, we will be actively trying to put them into housing. I'm speaking to a few different apartment complexes about my plans to where, and even hotel rooms that have multiple beds.
Yeah.
So there's one extended stay in Leon Valley that said when the time comes and we start setting up, he'll actively block off a few rooms that have double beds or double beds and a sleeper, and we'll put them there until we can fashion. I believe Paul, he's working on to see how he can fit like a family and a room unit, and so we're actively designing that for families on the property if they feel like they need to be on the property or they feel safer on the property. But if when the time comes, of course it'll be functional for everybody. But if there's families that need to come on the property, our priority is to get them into an active apartment building, like in an active apartment right then and there, taking care of the first month's rent, second month's, kind of like what GI Forum does, but we do ours on an extended basis until they're able to start building their homes. So they'll be we don't want to have priority lists, but especially if there's children involved, when it comes to building that small home and getting started on it, a lot of the small home kits take about 30 to 45 days to put together with a 4-man team. So we have our community helping out. We feel like the house will be stood up a lot faster. So if the family comes in, then we put them in temporary lodging until they get that house built. And that's when we'll help them actually get like their VA loan and stuff like that for how we'll be zoned.
And so if any of our viewers want to support and they want to donate, where would they go to do that?
So if they like to donate, they go to projectst.com and donate there. We have a few donate buttons all along the website. There's also a link to our first facility where they can donate as well. No donation is too small. We've got a donation of $5. That $5 gets 4 items from Dollar Tree. So, that can take care of a beauty kit for someone that may need it. It's never not enough. We need all hands on deck. We need all help that we can get. We're also looking for, especially out here in Texas, San Antonio outskirts too. We're looking for land donations, which are actually about to put up a bunch of flyers around the city. I'm very old fashioned, and I know a lot of these old farmers out here in Castroville and
and walk in with them in your hand, like you're like, hey, you're like,
yeah, go to Tractor Supply Co, put up a few flyers, and then go stare at the chickens because I love chickens. See if anybody got any goats for sale. So so we're looking for land donations.
Don't get George started on goats.
Yeah, I would love goat. The goats are especially little pygmy goats that say small. I love them.
I like the fainting goats. Those are fun. My friend used to have those, but like every time you drive up, like my mom would honk the horn and they all fly over. You're wrong for that, Mom.
With Skylar, I feel like the fainting goats would faint on us a lot. And so, and then
some of them.
Yeah, like all you yee, and then it's like
and I'm done.
I fainted a couple times. And then another thing too, Surprise, surprise, project. So if you don't feel comfortable donating, we're also doing a Kickstarter, and on our website, we're actually coming out with a few products that are handmade by our veterans. That when you purchase them, all the proceeds will go to Project S.T.E.A.L. For instance, we are actually making paint, and we are doing paint kits like on a canvas for military kids. And my daughter, who loves to volunteer with me, she started designing sparkly refrigerator letters.
Oh,
So to bring in some proceeds, because I've seen I'm not going to reinvent the wheel if I don't need to,
of
but
course.
I know there's organizations like there's another veteran community organization. They're like in Sioux Falls and Oklahoma City, um, but they sell barbecue sauce. They sell four flavors of barbecue sauce.
Yep.
Some sell apparel. So we're actually going to be loading up a page this week and actually with a few of those products. But we're going to be doing salsas, jams, you know.
Yeah, I can link you up with Brian Billick at Traders Village here in San Antonio. They do a lot of like tables, and they work with veterans for different events and stuff like that. And actually, that's how I raised a lot of money for Final Salute when I was raising money for homeless women veterans.
Okay.
So
And we could do Tipsy Texas over there.
don't get Brian started. Get the Captain America mobile and everything. It's pretty fast.
Yeah, Tipsy Texas have a Tipsy Texas booth at Traders Village. See everybody walking around drunk on pickles. Hey, anything for Project Still. Look, anything for Project Still. I have a couple secret projects I'm not gonna tell the public yet, but
Um,
there's so many ways that you can, earn money. Like my daughter's like, "Mom, you should do a popcorn fundraiser, like the fundraiser where we used to do in school."
yeah,
I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She kept it. It was a catalog that sold the cookie dough and the chocolate and the gift wrap, and
or for school.
I said, "Honey, it's April. I don't think anybody buying gift wrap right now." She said, "Mom, you buy gift wrap at this time off Amazon." And I'm like, "Okay, you're 7. You know too much. You know too much." Okay, so you may have a point, but we'll get there. So yeah, we have a lot going on, and then I think too I want to do a community yard sale for there it's PCS season. They're doing one in April, but we're gonna do another one in June. So the sky's the limit. We have a networking party coming up at the end of May. Might be pushed back though. So we're doing whatever we can because we know that we need all hands on deck to get this village together
Yeah,
and completed.
absolutely. Um, and so I looking at like the 22 a day, right? Because we all know it's widely assumed that the number's not even remotely close to being accurate. Are opioid deaths included in that statistic for the 22 a day, for the 22 veterans?
They're pulling away from that. From the research I've done and what I've read, they aren't counting opiate overdoses
Yep.
anymore. Um, they're considering them accidental drug overdoses. So they're no longer considering that to be necessarily suicide. So while they say the number is down to 17, another issue that I've had too is when it comes to the pandemic, I found out since they shut down facilities during the lockdown, a lot of veterans would walk to Audie Murphy to go receive some services. And then, the VA had a veteran outreach in certain cities, but due to lockdown, they stopped doing outreach. And then they closed down the facilities for the pandemic. So a lot of suicides went up, but not a lot of those veterans have access to firearms. So I said, okay, so how did you test them? And I got an honest answer of, well, due to the pandemic, we were having so many die, we had to attribute it to a COVID death because we did not know if they've had COVID beforehand. But, due to circumstances of them being homeless, blah, 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 they were selling me they were selling me smoke and I could blow right through it. And I said, well, that's bullshit. So they're leaning away from it. So right now they're mainly counting obvious deaths, you know.
Mm.
So
Yeah, I can't wait till they do the new statistic or the new study, and then maybe they have like a more concrete number, and hopefully it's more comprehensive.
yeah, because it hasn't been updated since 2019, even the veteran homelessness statistic, because nobody was going out.
Yep,
And I go to these sites because if I want to get support, I have to back it up with some sort of evidence. And I'm
definitely.
going to these statistics, and I'm like, okay, it's 2021, which is last year I started when we did it. No, no, that's when we start. That's when we,
It's like you're telling
incorporated.
me.
Yeah, no, it's 2021. Why is the latest statistic 2018?
Yep.
And then when you look at the HUD's veteran homelessness, they make estimates of unsheltered, but they primarily focused on sheltered homeless veterans that are in temporary and facilities. And I'm like, oh, that number's grossly miscalculated. Because with everything that happened, the eviction memorandum start. One of my friends, she does evictions, and she's like, I literally had a stack this high, and we were just kicking them out, putting them on people's doors.
Wow.
And it's like all these people are utilizing these resources. They're giving money to the states, but they're running out of it. To where even myself, who wanted to use one of those when I needed to, I couldn't even do it because they ran out of money so fast. So someone who is unhoused like me, relying on that source, what is going on?
Yeah.
So like I was honestly told by the VA and by the CDC, because I called. I have no problem calling. I have no problem showing up, knocking on doors. Because so many people were dying, they could not process and investigate the cause of death for a lot of homeless veterans that didn't have any obvious, you know, evidences of suicide.
That's unfortunate. We need to do better for our veterans.
Yeah, like my grandmother, rest her soul, um, she was found unresponsive in Vegas, and our family knew she had health issues. But my mom, she went to go pick up the body and everything like that, and she's like, "What was the cause of death?" Uh, COVID-19. She's like, "My mother had this, 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 and this. Why is COVID-19 the death factor?" And in Vegas, they told her that's just what they have to do because they don't know if it wasn't it because they couldn't test her. She was homeless. So once once that hit close to home, I was like, they're really going in on this one. But I mean, that's the nature of the beast, unfortunately. So I'm hoping as things get better and things even out, that they actually start doing their jobs because they're getting all this money. So they need to put it to work and actually do something
Yeah,
and
definitely
not
gotta.
just give it to people that aren't actually doing stuff, which
Yeah,
makes me mad.
gotta talk to some politicians. It looks like.
Oh, I'm ready. You
Okay.
saw my screenshot. You saw my screenshot.
All right. Hey, what are other common misconceptions a person might have that you hear a lot about homeless veterans outside of what you had talked about earlier? Is there anything else that maybe people like tend to assume, like maybe education wise, or anything else that you're having to deal with in your work with the homeless veterans?
Honestly, it's just the empathy
Yep.
and the consciousness. It's like it's such a there's so many homeless veterans out here that it's like a fart in the wind for a lot of people. They drive by them and that's it. They don't consider anything that happens anymore because it's like they've already made up their mind about the previous misconceptions that we talked about. And
Hmm.
so it's like they say, okay, we're not going to focus on them. We're going to focus on our active duty military. And it's at the same time, I had some conversations with people like, hey, I'm so glad you are a patriot. I'm so glad you're thanking people for their service and you're so supportive in everything that you post. But can you consider what happens when they leave the service?
Yep.
Can you consider what happens? And a lot of them don't. That's why I started doing the undie ruck.
Yep.
The undie ruck for veteran homelessness. I said, okay, well, when I asked several people, like, hey, when you see a homeless veteran, how do you think they get there?
Yep.
And nobody can answer it. They just drive by and then you drive by again and you see they're not there anymore, but they're somewhere completely else and you've been gone all day. And you're like, man, how did you get there? And I said, well, did you know like the average homeless person travels in a small city about 15 miles in a day? For
Yep.
San Antonio, it's estimated about 50 miles throughout the day because they go from point A to point B. And then because they can't be certain places, they have to move. They're trying to survive, they're trying to make money. So, can you imagine walking 50 fucking miles a day in this San Antonio weather?
Really?
Trying to get over these highways, trying to just do anything you can, and then you get arrested for panhandling or for loitering, or
Yep.
you're in an encampment. And I said one thing too, you got to realize they take everything that they have with them if they cannot leave it there because either somebody else is going to take it, somebody's going to throw it away, somebody's going to destroy it, or it has to come with them. So I said, okay, let us fill a fraction of what they go through because they honorably served. They
Yep.
saved our lives. They avenged the people who were killed, you know, and they get out of the service and they're let down. They've been let through the cracks, which is why we have that logo where the hands reaching down, or the hands are reaching out. And every logo of ours you see, it's someone reaching for the other. And we have a green logo with Project S.T.E.A.L, and a lot of people don't notice it, but due to the statistic of a lot of Vietnam um, era vets make up majority of the homelessness statistic. So our logo, we have the Vietnam vet where it's like the rolled up sleeves and the hard hat helmet, and then we have someone in a soft cap. Our ABUs were
Yep.
pulling them up because we're the next generation that needs to remember those that were before us. Because a lot of the military members before us that served before us put a lot of things into place where the experiments of what to do and what not to do to your military members that um, we have the privileges that we had now in this era of serving that they didn't have back then.
Yep.
So yeah, it was one of those things of, and then one of my friends was like, "Oh, it's like the Silkies March." I said, In a sense, but we're gathering items. We're not doing it just for fun. The fun's after, but this I want you to literally feel. They're like, "Oh, you're doing it in July. It's gonna be hot." Yes, yes, it's in July. Yes, be in your underwear, be in your pajamas, be in something that you don't want anyone to see you in, because our brothers and sisters who served before us, with us, and after us are sitting here on these streets getting evil eyes, getting disgusted stares, not allowed to come into places because of how they look. They have to carry the load of their entire world on their backs. It's the field op that never ends. We
Yep.
all went through Beast Week. Some of us got to deploy, some of us didn't. Different branches, they rucked but you got to go home afterwards. They don't get to go home after this. So do this ruck march, feel the weight that they feel, look how they look, feel that vulnerability that they have to ignore so they can survive, walk a fraction of the distance they have to walk.
Yep.
And I hope when you turn around and you see another person with the homeless veteran sign, that you reach out your hand and say, "Hey brother, let me help you. How can I help you?" Because I'm not the
Yeah.
only organization. I'm a new organization. There's so many out there, and I'm trying my best to partner with other organizations that aren't working on housing, because it's like we all need to help.
Yep. Absolutely. The veteran community needs to support each other more instead of tear each other down. I mean, imagine what we could accomplish if we just all banded together for the mission rather than for ego to divide. I mean, really, I mean, unfortunately, you see it a lot with nonprofits where they don't want to work with each other, or they don't like to talk about each other, and it's just not helpful to them, unfortunately, because the end of the day, veterans are slipping through the cracks. Things are getting missed, and things could be saved if you actually did reach out and you did have that network. So I mean, it really is important. I know that we have the Texas Veterans Women Veterans Day coming up in June, so I'm excited that we're going to be checking that out as well. Anybody that wants any information about veteran homelessness, they would go to the projectsteel.com. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh,
And then donate.
I'm a professional now. Hold on.
Okay.
Yes,
Hey, okay.
ma'am.
Look at
Yes,
you.
ma'am. I think
Come
this
on.
is like one of the rare times you see me without a ball cap.
I was going to say, I was like, there's no shower.
It's either a bonnet or I have like a camo hat on out of the 17 I have, and I'm on a t-shirt and some jeans, and my boots are dirty, and my muddy biker boots, and
I'm proud
you
of you.
know, yeah, so you
No.
know, I'm general now. I'm no longer foot soldier, but like I even got to the point where I have 100 envelopes with 100 stamps, with the return address on, and I've been printing out letters addressed to different people,
Nice.
um, to send them out because we need all hands on deck. And I know in Del Rio there's a someone holding some seat in Del Rio, and he just said he secured $1 million for veteran homelessness, and I said, "Shit, um,
My new best friend.
District 1 commissioner, hello. District 2 commissioner, hello. Nice to meet you. Now, since your friend did, you gonna let him make you look like that?" Senator Cruz, hi. He's showing you up. Now, let me tell you how to win this next election. It is 2022. Let's do this real quick.
Chris Tweet Besto.
I saw you fly out to Cancun during the winter storm, so I know you got the money. So
You're
just help us out a little bit. I know you got a commission off them piñatas they made of you in El Paso. So
so
go
mean.
ahead, use a little money for your veterans, and then you got Beto. Hey Beto, Mr. Rourke. How are you doing today? So you want to
Anybody?
win? You want to win this election, right? Oh, Mr. Teddy Cruz, you don't like him? Okay, well, let me see. See, let me tell you about. I'm a veteran, okay? And I got veteran friends who need help. So I say it's gonna look real good if you give us some of that campaign money. I'm just saying. I even look. I wrote a letter. I wrote a letter to Big. I wrote a letter to Mr. 45, and I said, "Sir,
Hey.
let me help you out with your next election. Can we get $10 million from you and your friends for this? I promise you, it's gonna look good. Nobody gonna tell you no when you help us out. So, look, I really put that in the letter.
Hey, I can't even say anything. I wrote to Robert Rodriguez once to have him be my videographer for Miss Veteran America because I was like, if I'm going to do this all the way, he would appreciate this.
I sent a letter to Gary Science and The Rock.
Everybody. The Rock.
I wrote a letter to Tyrese and I was like, "Hey, Chief, I know you did what you need to do for the Air Force when you battled them Decepticons. So can you help us out? Look, I know you retired with full benefits. I saw that episode. I saw that little part of the movie.
Were you like a chief or a senior or something?
I think they hot promoted him to chief.
Is that like a super step promotion? Questions.
They didn't step. They hopped, skipped, and jumped into the cartwheel, and he was like from a tech sergeant to a chief, right?
So I was like, how many years has it been? 3? It's not biannual.
I went to the little brown book, and I was like,
wait a minute.
He skipped a lot of steps.
I got questions.
I said, hold on. And he went from tech to chief. I said, wait a minute. When did his EPR close? Was he a must promote?
Asking those personnel questions, ma'am.
I know. So
we were minors. We don't ask them any questions after we realized that it's crew chief. Okay.
I swear, being a person that lives. Exactly. Being a person that lives has fucked up Air Force movies for me because when I see something strange, I say, his ass went to adverse action.
The medic gets worse. I couldn't even watch Grey's Anatomy after that.
Man, and then when they have all these military shows coming out, and I'm looking at them, and I'm like, that's not how you do that at all. What the hell? I was like, why is a Navy person wearing Air Force OCPs? What?
Is that a gig line? What is that? What's happening over there?
I was like, your belt's not on mine, sir. And I'm like, he's not wearing blousing straps.
Nope,
not at all. Not at all. And I know sometimes the TV's mirrored, and I'll watch a movie with Marines in it, and I'll sit there and I'll be like, did he turn the wrong way when he about face? That's not parade rest. What are you doing at attention? Your hands aren't supposed to be flat. What are you doing? And
she's rewinding it just so she isn't listening.
And one of my friends, she told me, she's like, you should go back in. And I said, now hear me out. If you go reserve, she said, if you go reserve, you'll put on E4, and then you just wait 6 months and you'll be E5, and you can enter in the MTI program with me. I said, girl, I'm all right. Movie's already ruined for me. And I talked to a couple of my MTI friends. They're like, oh, you would make an excellent MTI. I said, no, I wouldn't. I don't have the patience. I wouldn't even yell. I'd come in there and I'd just straight up be like, are those your blousing straps? Okay. And I'll sit there and, after a couple weeks, if they're marching and they pass the location, I'm going to look at them like, where are y'all going? Okay, keep going. Wherever you got to go. I thought we were coming to get clothing today, but if y'all want to keep going that way where you can't go nowhere, go ahead. I won't stop you. I'd be in my commander's office like hell. You didn't stop them to go they were late for clothing. I said, I told them we were going to clothing. They had their bags. They were here yesterday. They kept walking. Freedom of will.
That's fair.
So I said, I'm going to stick on the nonprofit side where I can cuss people out without, having any adverse actions pulled on me.
Girl, are you serious? You learn nothing from me. But no, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I love talking about veteran homelessness in general. It's so important. It's not discussed enough. We definitely love to have you come back on again, especially to discuss this issue and your future upcoming events that you've got coming up, because you've got a bunch of things that are in the works for the next few months. So
yeah, I mean, aren't you a board member now?
Yeah, something like that.
Brandy at Project S.T.E.A.L.KiJana.com, guys.
Well, shit.
Did you check your email today? Because I've been sending you shit. No, I'm just
Well,
kidding. It's in my draft. I'll send you a bunch of shit tonight on your email. So but thank you for having me on. I'm so glad that we're getting a lot of support and a lot of recognition.
absolutely.
With your personality and just you're like my support pillar because that's the one thing they tell you about about nonprofits that
Yeah,
they tend to fail pretty quick if they lack
support.
support on the personal side.
It's a lot.
Because I'm a single mom of 4 kids, one special needs, a 3 and a 2-year-old. Well, she's turning 2 in a couple days. And so sometimes it gets hard for me, but I rely on people like Brandy and those who participate when it comes to Project S.T.E.A.L, who um hold me up to continue going because I would always be like, hey, this is Texas, it's Military City, USA. Why aren't there any, like, why aren't we doing more, for our veterans? Well, what the hell is going on? And I was told by a really good friend of mine, he's like, you know what, if it was meant to be here, the Lord would put it here already, but he knew you had the heart to do it, so you go ahead and do it.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
so we got this. We got this.
Yes, definitely a lot in the works. You're gonna hear a lot about her soon, and I was excited that you were on the Chili Mo show. That was fun. So
Yes, I was so excited too. Chili, he's so adorable. He's
that
so
voice,
adorable.
yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. And his like fans are so supportive, and he's in LA, and like he's always doing stuff all over the US too. So I'm kind of curious to see what, because he wants to get us all over there together, and do like one big event. So I'm
You know what
curious.
we need to do? We need to see if we can get Mr. Most at the Undie Ruck.
Ooh, yes. Can you imagine? We have to explain him what silkies are, though. You know that.
Okay, so
You send him. You send him his. You send him his. You're like, this is your uniform.
like he said, hey, I'm gonna say, Chili, don't press your hair. This is Texas heat, not LA heat.
Ooh,
The
yes.
humidity, the
Like,
humidity is very different. Give him a ball cap. Let me French braid your hair real quick.
like, he's got some. He's better hair than me. I'm like, dang.
Look, he got better hair than me. Don't let this wig fool you. He has better hair than me.
Hi, Granny Lisa. How are you?
Hi, Granny. Yeah,
One
like,
fan.
and soon I'm gonna start reaching out to people for vendors and spots for the
Yeah.
Undie Ruck.
Okay. So any vendors interested, definitely reach out as well to Project S.T.E.A.L as well. If you're interested, or if you're not able to reach her, definitely reach out to us. Yes, I am the veteran podcast, and we will most certainly go ahead and connect you as well.
Yes.
So, and we're gonna have the shirts on sale for one more week. They did very well. We ended up being able to raise enough for to tattoo 3 veterans, and so we're trying to go for 5. So that's the goal. I'm trying to get them to tattoo down here in Texas. So we're trying to work on that and get everything all organized. But things are still in the works. But a lot's coming up. So definitely stay tuned as far as announcements. We've got some pretty interesting guests coming on as well. And we are going to actually be doing a giveaway actually with the Tactical Kings and Queens. They actually are going to be coming on and doing a giveaway of like this combat knife that they want to give to VRS viewers. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Hey, am I disqualified because I'm a VRS podcast?
I mean, if you're in the audience that day, I don't think you're disqualified.
Okay. I got another personality. I could put on another wig. You won't even know it's me.
Oh, that's fair.
I'm just saying. And by the way, I'm stealing your idea of the shirt and the stickers for Project S.T.E.A.L. Just got to figure out a good design for it.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, honestly, like I wanted to do it. It was just something that I thought the stickers look really cool. They're the vinyl. A lot of people are actually asking about those. And then also, like I said, I didn't know that Operation Tattooing Freedom had rights to a Playmate, her image, and they actually have like a tank with her on it. And I was like, why don't we make that into a sticker? Like people would buy that. Like, you could sell these different ones, and then you're making enough for a donation. Like, what 20 or 40 stickers? That's a tattoo. So I mean, that adds up fairly quickly. Yeah, I love the holograms. I didn't realize it was going to come out so colorful because she'd use so much color. I didn't realize the holograms would pick it up so much in the light. But the shirts, they are still on sale at killfootclothing.com. So if anyone is interested, definitely check it out for the next few days. I know in the future we are planning on adding shirts for the guys too, but this was actually a trial run just to kind of see how everything went. And yes, Granny Lisa, I definitely want to see you sporting it because you're adorable. But anyone that has any questions, please reach out to projectsteel.com. If not, I mean, please reach out to us at Yes, I'm the Veteran podcast. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. If there's anything that you want us to address on future podcasts, definitely let us know as well. But thank you so much, guys. I know we ran a little bit over, but it's always important to talk about veteran homelessness. So before we did wrap it up, is there anything else you wanted to add?
I just want to say to everyone who's watching, do not take a permanent solution to a temporary problem. I know things are looking bleak to some, but you are important. I love you. We love you. It doesn't matter where you're at. Stay here. Hope is coming. Help is coming. Just hold on a little bit longer. I know it can get a little exhausting. And I know sometimes you're just like, when does it all end? But let it end with the light still shining.
Yeah. You're your own best advocate, definitely, always. But all right, guys, we'll have a good rest of the night. And that's all from us here at Yes, I'm the Veteran. Bye.